So this is now 2 episodes in a row where I believe I'm quitting heroing, not knowing Leo's fate. And it's definitely playing with my emotions for sure. If you were to ask me last week, like I mentioned in the video, I was pretty split on what I wanted to see happening. I could see an argument to be made of him needing to die here, but on the flip side, it felt like, this could have been a new start for him, where he got to actually choose what he wanted to do. So it was pretty even. 50-50 split. Should he die? Should he live? Either one of them, I would have been perfectly content with. We leave this episode, and it definitely looks like they delivered a killing blow, but because we still have another episode left, it still could go either way. But I'm to the point now where I'd say I'm more like 70-30 split on what I'd like to see happening. And I honestly wouldn't have thought I would come up here to say this if you would have asked me last week, but I'm actually more siding with I hope the boy lives, mainly because the final moments before he was completely stripped and the generals came in to deliver their signature attacks, he really didn't want to die. And that's the big thing, right? Up until this point, he's felt like he needed to, and you really got a sense of confidence that he believed like he's lived long enough, he suffered, it's time to move on. He can pass the torch. This is his successor. It's what he's chose, and this is his last hurrah. And throughout most of this episode, seeing the moments building up to him switching sides, it was painful. He was one step away from launching essentially nuclear weapons upon the world just so he could fight and destroy a threat. And if it wasn't for the actual invasion, he would have done so, right? So the fact is, everything was making you say he does need to go, that this is the right, everything about it. But then, in his final moments, he felt like a human for once. There was fear that now that the moments come, he didn't want to die, he didn't want to let go, but he knew he had to. And based on a lot of the Queen's monologues inside her own head, it feels like she doesn't want him to go, almost like she recognizes that throughout his thousands of years of living, no one offered to save the hero, that you can't just put the burden on one man. Even if he was created for a purpose, that eventually is going to make you either destroy the world or destroy yourself. And no matter what, sometimes the hero needs saving themselves. And I think that's what makes a good hero story in general, right? When you have the lone wanderer who's emotionless and does whatever he needs to do, eventually they either become evil or they end up dying because they don't take care of themselves or they get corrupted. That's why a good hero needs a party to accompany them, because ultimately you need to rely on the support of your allies, your loved ones, family, friends, whatever it is. So to me, it's like, that's why I'm kind of in that 70% camp now, where I would love to see her be able to save him. The question remains, how would they do that? Because one, they need the Philosopher's Stone, which sure, they could get the other one, that's maybe they'll find a way to negotiate with the humans. But ultimately, he has his programming, and he was moments away from doing the impossible. So right now, I kind of see two ways of potentially saving him. One, you can make the argument, which I was theorizing last week, the spell, the anti-Leo spell, it could do something to his Philosopher's Stone that would allow him to be more human potentially. Maybe that spell will rip it away, maybe he'll actually become human because of all this. Or two, what I think could be a possibility, now that he's really had a taste of desiring something outside of just protecting humanity, maybe that will allow him to take small steps with the support of his comrades here that will allow him to actually, break away from that pre-programmed mindset of protect humanity, and then if there's nothing to protect, make something catastrophic so you can protect it. So either one of those would work in my opinion, but if they did decide to let him die, I also would understand, and as tearjerker as it would be, I could accept that as well. But I'm not gonna lie, I did change my tune a bit after this episode, and seeing him plead, even though he didn't say it out loud, just that moment, that standoff was such a well-directed episode. And that's what I love about the pacing of this episode, because I wasn't expecting them to actually use the spell at the end there, because based on the pacing and how long we were focusing on his backstory, with gorgeous presentation. I love the filter that they used. It added so much atmosphere to an already pretty somber moment. But you would look at it and say, man, 15 minutes of this episode was all dedicated on the past. So next week will be where we get the answer of what's going to happen. But I thought they did a great job at starting with the spell, most of it being the backstory, and then ending with the spell, but giving it enough time. Because the anti-Leo spell, him getting bound and kind of not being able to use any of his abilities that he's learned. There's not much you can do in time lengths in terms of you can't have a 20-minute fight with him being strung up and attacked, right? It loses its purpose pretty soon. but you can have 15 minutes of him and just getting a good understanding of where he was at when he got abandoned by humanity, so to speak, and the idea of why he wanted to quit heroing. And I thought they did such a great job because the idea of him essentially making what he started out as and then giving them the desire to kill humanity so that he can protect it. It was insane, man. It really gave you a sense that he was the true demon lord of the world. And the fact that had they not invaded at that time, he really would have launched that, wouldn't he? Like, that's insane to think about everything that we've seen. And even though we've heard something like this could happen, to see that he was moments away from actually doing it, launching that hell on innocent families, kids, wives, husbands, grandparents, just because he needed that purpose, is insanity. And that's why, like, the build-up when they're climbing that mountain and him explaining all that, it really doesn't feel like a mindless threat. Like, that was something he was moments away from doing. And it's a good thing that because even though I believe he could have destroyed everything even after they were launching their attacks, the fact that, he was essentially making what he started out as, it's entirely possible that, even if he ran 1,000 simulations, even if most of those simulations he won, there could have been 1 or 2 times where he didn't, and then something that's entire purpose is to destroy humanity would continue to learn and grow and would never be able to be defeated. Like, that's insane to think about. I really didn't think he would go that far, but man, seeing how close he came, it's no surprise that despite wanting to live, he didn't say anything out loud because he needs to die from his point of view. It's a matter of, can his comrades and someone like this queen be able to change that? Is it just simple support because someone finally offers a hand that breaks through and breaks that programming? Or is it something to do with the spell and a mixture of that? I have no idea, but what an insane way to end this season. With 1 episode left to go, man, I really just cannot commend the show enough. Like, there's so many good shows this season that have been subverting what you're typically used to, whether it's isekai, whether it's fantasy, whether it's, just all these different things. And that's what makes, I think, a season of anime like this one so great, is that on paper, you walk into a show like I'm Quitting Heroing and you know what to expect. It's either A, going to be super dark or super funny in terms of someone who used to be a hero quitting and switching sides. And then instead of just making it kind of funny and a little bit depressing here or there, they completely break apart the story design and say, we're showing you something completely different that you've never seen before. And I have to commend it. Like, honestly, it kind of gives me the impression like this is the type of stuff I would experience in a RPG, a fantasy action game. Not something that typically the anime medium decides to put this much polish into, but I'm thankful for the production committee to fund something like this and the studio adapting it, clearly just giving it their all, because it really does feel like something where by the time we leave episode 12, I'm going to be like, I don't need more. If you give me more, I'll watch more. But man, like, that really could serve as an ending, and I'm so ecstatic to see what they try to pull here. Truth be told, I think in terms of a specific day of the week, Tuesdays have had to be some of my favorites out of, like, a majority of the days. Because between this and Tomodachi Game and just how it plays with emotions and excitement and just what it's really done as of late, there's not much like it, man. I really enjoy this one, and I think out of all the different shows that I've been watching this season, I think this would be one of my easiest recommendations that I could give to someone, whether more casual or into anime, just because it kind of hits that sweet spot of, when people think of anime, right? They think of weird designs, whether it's cat girls, whether it's, over-the-top action and spells, but also that goofy comedy that can be there. I mean, this show has all of that. But then when you really get into the later episodes, man, it turns it on its head and it makes it feel like it's not just here to promote a source material. It's here to deliver that source material in the best possible way that you leave saying, you don't need to go read anything. You don't need to go consume anything else. You can just rewatch this one time and time again and you're going to have a damn good time. And I mean, it's one of those things where on one hand, I don't want to come into next week's episode because it's actually going to be over. But on the flip side, I'm so excited to see it be over because it feels like the right ending, right? Honestly, man, like, I'm Quitting Heroing, definitely one of the most, like, I think, perfect one-and-done season shows I've seen, probably in some time. But thoughts if you have any down below. I don't want to ramble any more than I have, but feelings down below. Leave a like if you enjoyed and subscribe if you're new around here. Till next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.